大家好, hi guys, it's Janae and welcome back to my channel, and today we're continuing the read-along for ErHa Volume 7. And while I wait for the notifications to go out and things like that, I thought I could quickly talk to you guys about my new theories, because as I have continued to read Volume 2 of ErHa, new theories are accumulating. So that's the thing. This is the second week. I've gotten confused about daylight saving time. I keep forgetting that other people have that issue. We don't do that in South Africa, so I'm very glad that it's not something that I have to worry about, because it seems like a headache from what I've heard. But also, hi. So, I have two separate theories with regards to who the ultimate big bad is, in a sense, and the one I am immediately blanking on, which is great. But the first one that I have is that it is the actual big bad, the one that seems to be giving advice to what the hell's that guy's name? The guy that the fake Guchen, that guy. You can see where I'm at on the books at the moment. But I have one theory that it is an alternate timeline Moran who is giving advice, but he can't actually go between the two worlds, so all he can really do is give advice, and then teach this guy how things are done and so on. And kind of hinging onto that is the idea that you can, this is a bit of a ridiculous theory, but hear me out, that you can tell when it is the fake Gochen controlling people versus when it's the alternate timeline Moran controlling people, because there are moments where citrus fruits are mentioned, and it's very clearly related to the fake Gochen, because we know his backstory at this point. But then there are certain moments where, for example, you'll have, I can't remember, there was two moments. One was with the time when Moran and Chuaneng were at the Feather Tribe, and they had been pushed into the 200-year-old memory, where the Ghost King is referring to himself as this venerable one. So I feel like, if you can infer who is controlling the chess pieces from the citrus moments, then you could maybe infer that the moments where someone randomly refers to themselves as this venerable one could then be moments that is manifested by this alternate timeline Moran. So that's the one theory. The other theory is that the Ghost King is part of Moran, and Shizun is part of Chuaneng, and they've had this not even decades, generations long thing going on. But yeah, I'm not 100% invested in either of the theories. It's just what my brain is coming up with at the moment. So sorry, that's a lot of talking. But anyway, me too, not used to it yet. And hello, I hope everyone is well and having a good week. I hope you are as well. Hi, and hi to Cookie as well. Oh, quickly, last thing before we do get started, because I see it has been 5 minutes, which I am told is a good amount of time to let people get the notification. I did quickly just want to thank my friend who very unexpectedly donated memberships at the end of last stream. I messaged him afterwards, and he was like, "Oh, I donated it afterwards because you seemed emotional and I didn't want to bother you." And I'm like, okay, I wasn't expecting him to be on the stream, because it's Not his kinds of books, but you know, I appreciate that he is always supportive. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. And to those who did get memberships, I hope you're enjoying them. If you have questions, you know, feel free to message me either in the comments or on Instagram or something like that. Okay, now we can get going. Sorry about that. So for anyone following along with the physical book, we were on page 73, chapter 216, Fallen into Servitude. That sounds fun. I'm not nervous at all. Silence fell over the vastness of Mount Jiao. The blood vines retracted, and the corpses, controlled by the Zhenlong chess pieces, sank back into the earth. The final command Nanggong Changying had given the spirits of the mountain was to die away. Even his descendants were powerless to oppose this order. We appreciate this man so much. Like, we literally knew him for a chapter, but he won me over. Beneath the bright moon and lapped by the crisp breeze, everything was in disorder. After shooting its last arrow, the bow Changyin, cut off from Nanggong Changying's spiritual energy, dulled and went grey in Nanggong's hands as the weapon sealed itself. Nanggong hadn't moved, letting his blood drip onto the ground. The moment the barrier opened, Ye Wangxi rushed over and knelt beside him. "Don't move. Stay right here." Her voice shook. "Let me treat your wounds." "Forget it. I'm still alive right now. If I let you treat me, I might end up no better off than the sect founder." Nanggong coughed feebly and pushed Ye Wangxi away. His black eyes sought out Jiang Xi. "Jiang Zhengmen, if I could trouble you." Jiang Xi inclined his head. "Allow me." He was the leader of the medicinal sect Guiyi. No one would object to his intervention. He bent and pressed jade-like fingers to Nanggong's inner wrist. The moment he made contact, his pupils contracted. He wordlessly locked eyes with Nanggong. He could tell beyond a shadow of a doubt that Nanggong's spiritual core had been shattered past repair. I mean, we kind of knew that, but I'm just glad he's alive. So if you tell me he's not gonna survive this, then I will have different feelings about that. Nanggong was no different from a commoner. Never again would he wield any magical techniques or channel spiritual energy. Nanggong most certainly knew this himself, but Ye Wangxi was right there. He met Jiang Xi's gaze and subtly shook his head. "How is it, Jiang Zhengmen? How is ascent doing?" Jiang Xi silently withdrew his hand. Reaching into his Qiankun pouch, he took out a muted red porcelain bottle and handed it to Ye Wangxi. "It's nothing major. None of the injuries are critical, don't worry." Did we experience the same battle? I understand that, like, a lot of it was him shattering his golden core, but at the same time, I feel like there were more things that happened than just that makes me wonder how he's still alive. "Don't worry, monsieur. Take this medicinal powder and apply it to his wounds daily. They'll heal within 10 days. He brought spiritual energy to his fingertips and tapped Nanggong's acupoints. Finally, he laid his palm over the gash on Nanggong's shoulder. A moment later, the bleeding stopped. Jiang Xi straightened and addressed the crowd. "We shouldn't stay here too long. Things may change quickly. Let's go up the mountain." So saying, Jiang Xi turned and strode to the front of the group, but he couldn't escape the conversation between Ye Wangxi and Nanggong that floated by him. He said, "I'm fine." Nanggong's voice was low. "I'll be better in a few days. Why are you still crying?" "Ugh, why are you always so useless?" All right. It's just a minor injury, that's all." Jiang Xi closed his eyes. He recalled what Nanggong had mouthed to him through the barrier, when his life had hung by a thread. Sighing, he led the crowd up the winding jade steps towards the ancestral temple. There were 3 more checkpoints between the position and the summit that required the blood of an Angong descendant for passage. Are we about to find out that Jiangxi somehow is related to the Nangong family and we don't know? Or did we know and I have forgotten? Or is that not what is happening? There's so many options. Let's just read. In his current condition, Nanggong Se no longer needed to slice his finger open. Covered as he was in wounds, he dispersed the barriers with a single touch. That's morbidly funny. The group met with no more obstacles as they continued their climb. At last, Nanggong Se smudged a drop of blood onto the eye of the white jade dragon statue. The final massive stone gate sank slowly into the ground, and the grand temple at the top of Mount Jiao revealed itself to the crowd. The holy temple that rose before them had a breathtaking ethereality. Passing through the gate, they stood at the edge of a dense forest surrounding its walls. Over the lush flora and sparkling waters, they could see a flight of stairs extending heavenward. Fully 9,999 steps. The staircase was so long, the partial temple at its top seemed nestled amidst the clouds. Only its shimmering outline could be seen, lustrous in the watery light of the moon, a celestial vision at the blurred boundary between the mortal and the sublime. The light of this temple, with its grand design and exquisite craftsmanship, stunned the crowd to silence. But it took only a moment for myriad emotions, anger, envy, greed, desire, to surge up in their hearts. Master Ma's response was the most baffling of all. Clapping a hand to his forehead, he wailed, "Mercy me! These stairs are so long, and we're not allowed to ride swords on Mount Jiao. How long will it take us to walk up? It's like another mountain at the top of the mountain." A few steps away, Huang Xiaye laughed. "No offense, but if I may say, no wonder Nanggong Xiangjiang didn't feel the need to ascend. If you could build a temple like this, what's the difference between rising to the heavens and staying on earth?" Interesting. The only thing I'm kind of glad about is if there are any riches on that, at the top of this mountain, on top of a mountain, then we at least know they're going to be working to get to it. The building of Rufeng sect's temple for sacrificial rites was commenced by the sect's third leader, Nanggong Ye. A cold voice interjected. After 2 generations of toil, the project was completed by the 5th sect leader, Nanggong Xiang. This temple had nothing to do at all with Nanggong Changying. Flabbergasted, Huang Xiaye turned and was met with Chuaning's frosty features. Moran could tell at a glance that he had reached the limits of his patience. If one more person were to test him, they might all be treated to the reprisal of the whipping at Butterfly Town. I mean, I'm not gonna complain if that happens, to be honest. They're getting on my nerves too. Like Huang Daozhang, I mean no offense, Xuaning said icily, but let me offer a word of advice. If you haven't done your reading, it's best to watch what you say. Huang Xiaye cared for very little as much as he cared for his own reputation. Listening to Chuaning lambast him in front of the crowd was more than he could bear. He made to shoot back a stammering reply when Jiang Xi cut in. "Huang Xiaye, you forget yourself." You know, I was very weary of Jiang Xi, and maybe I should still be, but I'm really warming to him at the moment. Jiang Xi's standing and authority were unimpeachable. Huang Xiaye turned a crusty shade of grey and choked out a dry laugh, feigning indifference. "Jiangmen, Don't take it so seriously. I already said I meant no offense. Am I supposed to excuse your offensiveness because you say you meant none? Jiang Xi rolled his eyes and shot Huang Xiaoye a sidelong glare, unwilling to look at him straight on. And am I supposed to tolerate your stupidity just because you're senile? Oh, he is not holding back. Chuaning might have been a Zongshi, but when all was said and done, he possessed only martial skill, not political power. Jiang Xi, however, was a different beast. His Guiye had the cultivation realm at its beck and call. Huang Xiaoye broke into a cold sweat and didn't dare talk back. This is very satisfying. Now he just needs to sort out Master Ma and I will be good to go. With a cool sweep of his sleeves, Jiang Xi strode into the forest, the rest of the sect leaders at his heels. Of course, who glanced at Huang Xiaoye as they passed, of those who glanced at Huang Xiaoye as they passed, some were disdainful and some sympathetic. Others ignored him completely. The abbot of Wubei Temple sighed out and I'm gonna butcher this again. Amitabha? I'm not sure. If the circumstances weren't so dire, Moran would have burst out laughing. A few steps into the woods, Liang Gongsi hummed in surprise. What is it? Asked Jiang Xi. Tangerine trees. Can we please leave tangerine trees in the past? I never thought I'd have this much aggression towards a poor fruit tree. Liang Gongsi cast his gaze around, taking in the trees on all sides, laden with crisp white blossoms. Why are these tangerine trees here? These all used to be spiritual long-nosed trees. Oh no. Look! A sharp-eyed young cultivator pointed towards the mouth of the stream running through the forest. There's someone there. The crowd craned their necks. A man sat beneath a flourishing tangerine tree on the banks of the burbling brooks, his back turned to them. His head was lowered as he examined something in his hands. Is that a human or a ghost? Xiao Zhengyong asked with a frown. I'll take a look, Moran replied. Using Qinggong, he cleared the gap in a leap, landing silently in the tree nearby and creeping closer until he could see the man from the side. As soon as he got a clear look at the man's face, he stopped cold. It was Liang Gongsi's father, the last leader of Rufeng sect, Liang Gongliu. Because we haven't had enough of this man. And I'm weirdly weary that it's not actually him, unless it's his spirit. Okay. How could this be? Last anyone knew, Shizun Lin, oh, so that is his name, I was doubting myself for some reason, had fed Nanggong Liu a linqi fruit. He ought to have been subjected to 365 days of torture before suffering a miserable death. What was he doing here beside a mountain stream, apparently hale and hearty, in good spirits even, washing a basket of tangerines? Glanced off rippling water and illuminated Nanggong Liu's features. He had a faraway look as he drained water from the washed tangerines, which he placed in a basket, singing softly all the while. Best are the years you come of age, seeing the world's flowers astride a fast horse. His sleeves were rolled to the elbow, his arms unmarred as he reached into the clear stream. They bore no sign of the gory lattice work the lychee fruit should have left behind. Again, now I'm kind of leaning towards what Xu Zhengyong had asked and wondering if he's a ghost. A furrow appeared between Moran's brows. Something was clearly off about Nanggong Liu. He'd been made into a Zhenlong chess pawn, but was unlike the corpses that had crawled from their graves. Nanggong Liu seemed to retain much of his own awareness, moving about like a living person. Moran sped back to the others. Well? Xu Zhengyong asked anxiously. What did you see? Moran shot a glance at Nang Gongse and lowered his voice. It's Nang Gongliu. A good number of those present held a deep grudge against the former sect leader. One immediately drew his sword and cried, The bastard, I'll kill him. Nang Gongse hung his head in silence, his face ashen. Something strange is going on, said Moran. Nang Gongliu's obviously been made into a pawn, but he bears no traces of the lynchy fruit. It's best to leave him be. Yeah, it does feel a little bit like a trap. After a moment's consideration, Chuaning asked, Is it possible to nullify the lynchy fruit's effects? Guye was best poised to address such a question. It is, answered Hanlin the sage, but it's far from a straightforward. Why would Xu Shuanglin feed him a lynchy fruit only to go to such great lengths to reverse its curse? It makes no sense, unless he was putting on a show. Regardless, Jiang Shi added, if Nang Gongliu is here, then Xu Shuanglin is likely in the ancestral temple. We haven't wasted the trip. It just feels too convenient. Spying movement in the corner of his vision, Jiang Shi turned, and the crowd followed his gaze. They watched as the former leader of Rufeng sect emerged from the trees with a basketful of tangerines on his back. He tapped a rough-hewn staff against the ground as he walked, taking quick, light steps. The bright smile on his face became more apparent the closer he drew. Nang Gongse had told himself he wouldn't look, but how could he resist? Oh no. Have we not heard Nang Gongse enough? Can we stop, please? His lashes began to quiver like wind-blown willow fluff with a single glance at his father. He couldn't say what he felt, hatred or heartache, or something else entirely. He didn't know. He wanted to look away, but that figure was like a barbed fishhook snagging his gaze. Damn, what a visual. A shout rose up from the crowd. Someone could no longer hold back. Nang Gongliu, today you'll pay your debts with blood. An arrow flew from the bow in their hand, streaking towards the back of Nang Gongliu's head. No one had time to intervene, but the archer's skill was fortunately lacking. The whistling arrow struck the basket Nang Gongliu carried on his shoulders, embedding itself in several plump tangerines. Many cursed silently. The downside of traveling in such a large party was that there would inevitably be some idiots in the mix. Yeah. It was too late now to fuss over which imbecile had loosed the wayward arrow. More pressingly, Nang Gongliu had slowly turned his head and taken notice of the crowd. Upon seeing the sheer number of people assembled in the forest, Nang Gongliu froze. He began walking towards them, his face still plastered with a dreamy expression. Either this man is not actually conscious, or he's not actually himself. Meatbun needs to give Nang Gongse a personal apology? Yes, 100%. Several cultivators drew gleaming swords several inches out of their scabbards, eyes fixed on Nang Gongliu's every move. Under the weight of 1,000 oppressive stares, a sense of foreboding took hold of Nang Gongliu at last. His feet stuttered to a halt beneath the swaying shadows of the tree. Ladies and gentlemen. As soon as Nang Gongliu broke the silence, dozens were impelled to step out from the crowd. A few drew their swords fully. Suddenly, Nang Gongliu's face split into a grin. It was a familiar sight to the sect leader at the front of the group, the same warm, simpering expression he had always shown outsiders. The Taxue Palace leader started in astonishment. Okay, I'm sure they're about to tell us something shocking, but before they do that, is it possible he's another white chess piece? Because those are much more real, right? The sect leaders took looked at one another, unsettled by this pawn's bizarre behavior. As they hesitated, Nangong Liu rolled down and smoothed out his sleeves. Then he fell to both knees and prostrated before the crowd of thousands, diligently pressing his forehead to the ground. This servant Nangong Liu forgets his manners. Esteemed sirs and madams, you have come from afar. Welcome to our humble abode. Welcome. Did Xu Shuangmin just decide to start playing house with his brother? Like, what is going on here? Half the tangerines fell from his basket and rolled onto the ground around him. When he eventually raised his head and saw the spilled fruit, he shrugged the basket off his shoulders and gathered them up without a hint of embarrassment. Beneath countless confounded gazes, he filled the basket once more and rubbed his palms together, grinning. Honored guests, do you wish to see His Majesty? Oh no. Also, like, how do we know this is not a delaying tactic in order for quote-unquote His Majesty to get away? And I'm unsure whether His Majesty is referring to Xu Shuanglin or if we're supposed to get the hint that actually it's our dear, not so dear, venerable one in this timeline or something weird like that. I'm not. His Majesty? Goosebumps rose over Moran's skin. He had answered to Your Majesty for nearly a decade. Hearing it now, he reflexively thought Nangong Liu referred to him. The sect leader exchanged another glance, utterly dumbfounded. Zheng Yong huffed out an incredulous laugh, but no one could muster a word at the moment. Met with their silence, Nangong Liu scratched his head, perplexed. He ventured again, more tentatively this time. Honored guests, do you wish to see His Majesty? Jiang Xi's mouth twitched, but remained closed. Nangong Liu seemed to deflate somewhat, but he tried one more time. Honored guests, do you wish to see His Majesty? Silence. Honored guests, Moran cut in evenly. Who is His Majesty? His Majesty is His Majesty, naturally. Nangong Liu was delighted to receive a response at last. If you want to see His Majesty, walk right this way. He's very busy, though. He may not have time to receive you. He has lots of extremely important business to attend to. Despite the tense atmosphere, Zhu Yong finally lost it and burst out laughing in earnest. Extremely important business? What kind of important business? Managing a mountain of corpses, playing chess against himself, puppeteering a bunch of marionettes. That's what you call extremely important business? Huh. Xu Shuanglin's quite the character. Moran's forehead creased with worry. So he's in the temple now, and even though he's very busy, we can still see him? That's right, Nangong Liu said. Of course you can try and see him. If his door is closed, just wait in the city. He'll come out when he's done. Enough. I have to go up too. We're out of tangerines, so I have to bring more. Otherwise His Majesty will be cross. Without waiting for a reply, he strode off towards the temple, leaving the cultivators looking at each other in confusion. What should we do? Do we go up? Could it be a trap? Certainly feels like it. But Moran had already flitted ahead on his own. His swift footwork quickly left Nangong Liu's fruit-laden figure and the rest of the crowd far behind. You can't frickin' do this without explaining at least something to Chuaning. Do you want him to make a mistake somehow? Like, this is just asking for miscommunication to happen. At last, panting for breath, he reached the temple gates. He had been solely focused on his ascent. Not until he looked up did he realize the full scale of this palatial hall. Its pair of doors was staggeringly tall, carved with expansive reliefs. Their subjects spanned from the underworld to the heavens. On the left-hand door, a soaring dragon swallowed the sun. On the right, a magnificent phoenix spit out the moon. The two celestial bodies gleamed brightly, their radiance interweaving across the doors. The groves between the majestic dragon scales were filled with pure gold, the tips of the phoenix's arching tail inlaid with pearls and gemstones. From the temple's utmost rafters hung thousands of intricate multi-tiered wheel lamps cast of bronze. The undying flames dappled the towering gates in the rich light of luxury. Damn, that is a beautiful but very intense description. Moran braced himself to push open the heavenly doors, but at the lightest touch of his fingers they swung ponderously inward, with a sound like distant thunder. The dragon and phoenix parted to admit him without any of the difficulty he'd expected. The instant the front hall came into view, Moran froze where he stood. What kind of bizarre spectacle was this? I don't know, and now I'm confused and apprehensive at the same time, because what kind of response is that to whatever he's about to see? Okay. I'm stressed. Chapter 217. The nightmare begins. Lovely. I haven't cried enough. Let's just I probably need to go get my tissues in the break. Moran walked down the long aisle, bisecting the hall. The stones beneath his feet were polished to an icy mirror finish, reflecting the sharp lines of his image. Each footfall made a lonely echo in the cavernous space, but Moran wasn't alone. He was walking through a great crowd of Rufung supplicants on either side, probably dead ones. Men and women, young and old, each face distinct. He was surrounded by what amounted to a small city. On his right, Rufung sects dead and those who had wronged Shizun in life met with a series of sorry ends. They were tortured and grievously wounded, killed by every sort of gruesome method, only to be revived and killed again in an unending cycle. Oh, he has I don't want to say gone as far as past timeline Moran and then some, but it's we don't know as many of the details about Moran's horribleness, so this is very intense. The occupants on the other side of the hall looked peaceful and happy, reveling in song and dance. He spotted Luo Xian among them, but she couldn't be here. It must have been a body enchanted enchanted with her likeness, without her real souls, controlled by a black chess piece like the merfolk from the Jincheng Lake. Luo Xian's hair was neatly pulled back, and she sat beside her husband, Chen Huan. They looked relaxed and at ease. Landlord Chen's youngest daughter was there too, sitting next to her older brother and sister-in-law, chatting cheerfully. Luo Xianshan nestled against Chen Huang. So, if I'm not misremembering, Luo Xianshan is the poor girl who had her face stuffed with tangerines, right? I can't imagine being forced to have even your image associated with this man against your will after he's already caused so much torment to you. I would be taking up issue with some kind of deity. Okay. Her hand daintily covering her mouth whenever something amused her, eyes curving into gentle crescents. It was a lovely illusion, but Moran's back was drenched in cold sweat. He strode down the long aisle, hell on one side, heaven on the other. Good and evil were partitioned clearly. To the left was laughter and cheer, to the right was anguish and suffering. He continued to walk, through fire and water, light and shadow. He looked to the left. It was a tableau of merriments, a stream running with clear liquid burbling through. Next to the stream, some read in leisure, while others composed poetry. Children laughed and played, and women reclined in plush robes, flushed with drink and cheer. This is grim. He looked to the right. Flames licked at the base of the seething cauldrons. Misshapen forms were doused with hot oil, their tongues yanked out, their hearts run through. The inhabitants screeched at each other, locked in savage combat, eyes flashing with bestial light. Among them, Moran saw the previous abbot of Bay Temple, the monk who had orchestrated Shishongan's downfall at the spiritual mountain competition. The others surrounded him, each wielding a short rusty knife. They sliced into his face, legs, and chest again and again, every wound healing as Moran watched. This feels like he has tapped into more power than Moran had in his past life. Because I don't know if we ever saw Moran be this powerful. Which is terrifying. And playing Happy Family with your likeness too. Yeah, see, that is the interesting thing, is like someone who apparently wronged him so much is getting off with literally no scratch. Like, obviously he was previously tormented, but why have him have superficial peace? That's very, very interesting. The old monk cried out with each cut, wretched, shapeless sounds spilling from his mouth. That garrulous tongue of his had long been ripped out. Oh, great. The farther Moran walked, the more chilling the scenes became. He hardly wanted to look at either side any longer, to bear witness to the tears and laughter, the fury and joy. On the left, a woman's gentle voice rang out. Parted by life and death, O lonely fate, a lover unable to rouse his love's reply. Is that about to be Song Chitong? Because I'm so apprehensive right now, and we have art, because yes, let's have art about the horrible scene that Moran has encountered, and why not make it beautiful at the same time? It just makes sense, you know? To the right, another woman was being ripped apart by a dog, her sharp screams rending the air. The corners of Moran's vision were bright on one side and dark on the other. Both were unequivocal and absolute, like pawns upon a chessboard, black versus white, a stark line drawn down the middle. He felt like his head was on the verge of splitting open. I mean, I get that luckily Moran has reformed and we very much appreciate it and we stand it and everything like that. But I'm kind of glad he's the one to see this, because he probably has the strongest stomach, having inflicted a lot of similar things to other people in his past life. So I'm glad someone like Ye Wengxi is not witnessing this right now, and heaven forbid if Nang Gongsi were to see this. One step slowed. He stood in the middle and closed his eyes. He didn't want to see these confused scenes of paradise and purgatory any longer. He stood waiting for the rest of the group to catch up with him. But the voices from both sides lingered in his ears, piercing as arrows, impossible to shut out. The falling leaves chase off my fragmented dreams. I stroll over the ground dusted in fragmented petals of red. Don't do this to me, please. I'm begging you. Save me, save me. He heard Luo Xiangxiang say softly to her husband, Chenlang, the tangerine trees are blossoming in the courtyard. Come see them with me. He heard Man Qi, the former leader of Jian Dongho, cackling wildly. An affair? Yes, indeed, I had an affair with Nanggong Liu. I'm a loose woman, a shameless hussy. I murdered my own husband. I made myself sect leader. Come see who I really am. I'm just an ugly witch. Ha! They were crowded together, the living with the dead. Were they real or were they an illusion? Were they black or white, good or evil? The voices rose around him like a tide. He seemed to see a pair of massive dragons breach the beating waves, scales gleaming cold beneath the moon. Were they two evil dragons? No, they were his own two souls. Okay. They tangled together, roaring and spitting, clashing mightily, fangs bared. The earth trembled with the force of their battle. The cacophony was too much for Moran to bear. He clapped his hands over his ears, but he couldn't stop those garbling sounds from leaking in. In the end, he had no choice but to cast a muffling spell on himself. When his eyes snapped open, his surroundings had vanished. Fear jolted through him. He stood rooted to the spot. What happened? Where did the temple go? Where was he? He was surrounded by darkness. A formless, endless darkness. Was this one of Shishonglin's illusions? Moran looked all around, but he couldn't see a thing. He took a few steps forward. Shizun? He called out tentatively. Simone? Is anyone there? No one answered. There was only darkness. A darkness like death. Regardless how much hardship he had endured, this absolute gloom struck terror into his heart. He strode forward, his arms prickling with gooseflesh. He walked and walked. He saw a pale glimmer in the distance ahead. Perhaps an exit. Maybe don't walk around if it's possible that you're gonna walk off the edge of a cliff by accident or be led into a certain trap because you can't see where you're going. He turned his steps towards it. Without warning, a crowd of shadowy figures materialized around him. Their faces were indistinct, but he could hear them muttering softly, like a wave crashing to shore. They knelt at one before him. They were lauding him, low voices running together until they merged into rushing rapids. Praise be to Emperor Tashin-Jin. Long live the Emperor. Emperor Tashin-Jin? No! No! He trembled and shuddered, quaking uncontrollably. He sprinted ahead as fast as his legs would carry him, but thousands of hands seemed to grab him from all sides. Your Majesty, Tashin-Jin, may the heavens favor you for all eternity. May the blessings upon you be unending. May you never lack for fortune or riches. Moran felt his sanity fraying. He struggled out of the grasp of those intangible hands, running towards the sliver of brightness. No, that's not me. Go away. Get out of my way. Tashin-Jin. But those voices seemed to tail him like his own shadow. He couldn't shake them off. He wondered frantically if Shishonglin had captured some vengeful spirits from the ghost realm and tasked them with hunting down his escaped souls. Your Majesty, why are you leaving? Emperor! Emperor! Moran stumbled, white hot lights searing his vision. He wanted to leave, but those resentful spirits trapped him, crowding him in until he had nowhere to run. In his helplessness, rage exploded out of him. He spun and drew his sword, hacking those nebulous shadows back into the dark. His expression was twisted, wolfish, and feral. Leave me alone, he roared. Get the hell away from this venerable one. Get out. No, not the venerable one. And part of me is just genuinely terrified that he's accidentally hurting the group that he came with without realizing it because he's in an illusion and not being able to recognize them or something like that. Because it seems like the kind of nonsense that Shishonglin would pull. The instant he heard his own words, he blanched. Someone snickered. This venerable one? He said, this venerable one. That's right, he called himself this venerable one. Emperor, were we wrong? In your heart you know better than anyone who you are, where you came from. You can't run away. Moran raised his sword, taking a step back and shaking his head. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. Those scattered wisps of darkness solidified. I am stressing, and it's affecting my words, sorry. Solidified once more, and a blurry silhouette drifted down in front of him. It pressed closer, step by step. It's not true, the shadow said softly. I'm not Emperor Tashin-jin. How are you not Emperor Tashin-jin? That voice was delicate and supple, like threads of smoke rising behind a gauze curtain in summertime. Of course you are. Every wrong committed, every debt incurred, has its source. There is only you. You can't run away. But it's over. Rand stared at that incoherent, I don't know how to pronounce it, mass of darkness. It's over. Tashin-jin died in front of the heaven-piercing tower. He lay down in the grave. He's got nothing to do with me. I'm just... The shadow gave a quiet laugh, tender as a flower's pistil. You're just what? Rand couldn't say. You're just a soul who found his way back? The shadow asked. Just a body that retained a few memories. You're just an innocent living in the shadow of Tashin-jin. Or could it be that it was all just a dream? Rand had been seized by fury and fear a moment ago, but now his heart iced over, the blood in his veins frozen solid. His mind stalled, his lips opened and shut, but he couldn't string together a sentence. At length he squeezed a single broken word from his aching throat. Dream? You thought you'd been reborn this entire time. But who can say for sure? Why do you think what you perceive is the truth? Who's more real right now, you or I? The cloud of dark smoke whirled around him, its outline growing sharper. You said you died in front of the heaven-piercing tower, but look, you're standing here right now, alive and well. Are you so sure you died? Don't go playing these games with me. Rand glared at the smoky figure. He wasn't shaking anymore. He only felt cold, as if he'd fallen into a cavern of ice, plummeted into a fathomless abyss. He was so cold. Was he so sure he died? The desolate chill of Wushan Palace seemed to seep back into his bones. I have a weird thought, and I don't think it's very likely, but I need to share it before we find out anything to the contrary. So, what if, in order for the Tashin-jin of a separate timeline to be able to inhabit this timeline's Moran needs to go to where that Tashin-jin is? And so maybe that's why these mind games are necessary, in order to lure him back to a place where he doesn't want to go back to. I don't know. I feel like I'm conflating too many theories at this point, but that's what this book does to me. Okay. The torches of the rebel army raised by the 10 great sects wound around the mountain like a massive snake, writhing and hissing, ready to snap his neck. It was like Shizun had just been standing before him, tearful and bereft, spitting ruthless words at him. Moran, give my Shizun back to me. Was he so sure he died? He remembered taking the poison. He remembered agony tearing through his insides. He had staggered to the heaven-piercing tower and used the last of his strength to climb into the freshly dug grave, to lie down in that coffin. The high-tongue blossoms had unfurled so gently, scattering their soft fragrance as the shadows danced and played with the light. He had closed his eyes. You opened your eyes. You awoke the year you turned 16, when everything could still be turned back. Isn't that right? As though it could read every thought in his heart, that shadow snickered softly. He returned. Shizun Peak hasn't yet fallen, and though Rufeng Sect burned again, you weren't the one to set the fire this time. Yongxi isn't dead, neither is Shiming-jing. You came to understand your own heart and fell in love with Chuaning. Isn't there a point where it kind of sounded like whoever's orchestrating this needed Moran to understand his own heart, and now it might become a problem. I don't know. After you became more Zongshi, he accepted you. You think you've thrown off the past. You fancy yourself a righteous leader, a proper cultivator, a hero of his generation who's climbed this mountain to capture the cruel villain Shushwanglin. Silence followed. The artery in Moran's neck throbbed wildly in concert with his skittering pulse. The shadow had no face, but it was staring at him nonetheless. Moran knew that it was. You've got quite the imagination. It was like a cold blade sinking into his heart, venomous fangs piercing his throat. Despair spread through him like a poison, like the poison he'd swallowed at the age of 32. It radiated outward, seeping into his guts, his heart. You were never reborn. They're dead. All of them are dead. Shimeng is still alive, but he hates you to the bone, said the shadow. Now you've woken from your dream. Open your eyes, Ta Xinjun. You are still the Lord of Darkness. No, I'm not. Moran could hear someone speaking. That voice was feeble and broken, as if it had been shattered and glued back together. In belated shock, he realized the person making these sounds were him. He summoned courage from every crevice of his bones, every drop of his blood. He opened his eyes wide, a frenzied, desperate light jumping in them. You lie? That's impossible. Impossible! If he impales Chuaneng, and I am gonna be screaming something, and it's not gonna be pretty. Any of the people he cares about, for that matter, like, it's not just Chuaneng I'm worried about. The dark smoke dissipated again, but the voice was steady as ever. Lie? A low chuckle. Your Majesty, why don't you take a look at what's in your hand? I'm feeling some type of way right now, and I don't know how to handle it. I'm not sure where I put my bookmark. Okay, I'll just use this for now. Okay, so I am gonna take a quick break. We will be back at like 3 past-ish for the next hour. And I will see you guys then, yeah. Okay, we're back. I hope the audio is still good. I honestly have so many thoughts and fears regarding about what we're about to discover. And I just remember there was the mention of Chuaning kind of being affected by Bugwei, which I'm assuming we're about to find out that Bugwei is what Moran is holding in his grip. But yeah, I have that arc of it also had me wondering if Moran's coffin had somehow ended up in this universe instead of staying where it was supposed to be. I'm there's so many thoughts and fears. And also, I'm kind of intrigued by the naming convention that we've been seeing with Moran's weapons, because Bugwei obviously was no return, I think. And then isn't his current whip Willowvine also something great? Jiangwei, I think. And obviously Jiangwei's whatever situation, but I'm wondering if there is a simile in Chinese language that kind of could be given to showcase something about that name, in the same way that Bugwei was no return. Maybe there's a more hopeful spin on the name that his Willowvine has. Anyway, sorry, a lot of thoughts. This novel really just breaks my brain a little bit every single time I try and think about it, so I'll be ready. Again, I hope the audio is okay. We are on page 93, chapter 218. But you've returned. I don't know whether to be weary or not. I actually am. He glanced down and did a violent double take. The blood in his veins seemed to run backward as buzzing filled his skull. In his hand was the very blade that had accompanied him in countless battles, the holy weapon Bugwei. In the darkness, the pitch-black single-edged blade glinted with sinister light. It had no scabbard, just a slender yet sturdy hilt. On the golden band of the hilt was carved in a strong hand, Bugwei. Our past lies on a vermilion bridge in emerald fields. Another year gone, yet still I wait, for you do not return. But you've returned! Sorry, that's the title, that's not... That's... Okay, seeing ghosts, that's... that does not help. That actually feels like that just underscores what this voice is trying to make us believe, and I refuse to believe it right now, because I refuse to have everyone that I've grown to care about over the 7 volumes be dead. It was as though Moran had been struck by lightning. The pupils of his eyes shrank to pinpricks, and his stricken face was paler than a corpse's, his expression more ferocious than a vengeful ghost's. No, it can't be. No, not this. If he could think clearly, he would realize that there had already been, Bugwei had already existed in this world, so it could be them just having stuffed that in his hand, and not necessarily the fact that he's literally back in the past timeline. He flung Bugwei to the ground in despair, but the holy weapon was attuned to him. It immediately returned to his waist. It can't be. Moran frantically summoned Zheng, hysterically calling for it over and over, desperate for the red willow vine to manifest in his hand, but it was to no avail. Yang Wei didn't answer. All he had was Bugwei. Now do you believe me? The shadow of the relentless spirit coalesced again, more quickly than before. In no time at all, it formed the shape of 4 limbs, a torso, a head. Moran refused to believe it. He refused. He turned away from that black cloud and sprinted towards the source of the bright light. This was some illusion laid down by Shishonglin. It was all just an illusion. As long as he made it to the light, this nightmare would end. He ran, dashing madly towards the escape, only to be caught by a hand on his arm, tightly gripping him. Get lost! Moran shoved it away with a snarl. Go away! What's real? How would you know better than me? I know what's real. He's good to me. That's real. He's not dead. That's real. All he and I have gone through these past few years, how could any of it not be real? Jiangcheng Lake, Peach Blossom Springs, the Ghost Realm, Butterfly Town, when we were wed. Tell me more about when you were wed. A gentle laugh interrupted him, then words, soft as a sigh. Aran, the one you wed was me. How could you forget? No. We're not about to have, I refuse to believe that this is about to be revealed as, Shimei. Hell no. Only other person could be Song Chitong. I jerked around. The shadowy figure was now fully formed. An exquisitely painted face, indescribably charming, a beauty beyond compare. She sidled closer, her hairpins of jade and pearl swaying, dressed in the same scarlet wedding robe she'd worn at their wedding. When I could walk no further at Dawning Peak, it was you who carried me. You wanted me to call you Aran instead of your Majesty. Have you forgotten? Sure. Her smile was soft as ribbon grass, but the grip of her hand was terrifyingly strong. Moran jerked away from her. This couldn't be Song Chitong. The fingers on his arm pressed tight enough to leave bruises. He went on, one foot after another. That white light was getting closer, closer. Somehow, in the midst of this darkness, he knew that this was the exit, towards the light. He only needed to get there. Yeah, 'cause like I was maybe getting pulled a little bit into it, but as far as I remember, in the previous lifetime, Song Chitong had died before he passed away, so something's not adding up at the very least. We kind of already knew that. From behind him, he heard Song Chitong laugh. Your Majesty, where are you going? Chuaning is dead. You killed him. Are you really going back there? Moran hesitated. Back there is... He didn't hear the rest. Moran tore free from the grasping restraints of those vicious shadows and ran, shoving the sound of her voice to the back of his mind. That clear sunlight grew brighter and stronger before him. He was like a man drowning in the depths of the ocean, struggling and kicking with all his might towards the wavering, scattered light of the surface. He broke through the darkness abruptly, and the darkness abruptly vanished. His legs trembled as he panted, gulping in air like he ran. He really had emerged from the water. The sudden brightness disorientated him. He raised his arms to shield his eyes. A few moments later, he heard the sound of birds chirping and smelled the delicate scent of Shifu Haitang. Somehow I don't think we're out of the woods just yet. Moran cracked his eyes open. Where was he? The first thing he saw was a flourishing Haitang tree, its branches heavy with pale pink blossoms like embroidered dawn. This wasn't the Nangong ancestral temple. The illusion still hadn't ended? But his mind was already falling to pieces. He was suddenly uncertain who he was, uncertain what was a dream and what was reality. As he sat up, a withered Haitang blossom that had rested at the tip of his nose drifted to land on his knee. Where is Chuaning when we need him? I'm so stressed. And the thing is, like, I can't even hope that we're close to the end in terms of, oh, you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel, because we just got to that light and we're still freaking 4 volumes away from the end. Wait, sat up? Only then did Moran realize he'd been lying down, as if he'd just woken from a nightmare. He glanced around and realized he was at the foot of the heaven-piercing tower, sitting within an open black lacquered coffin. The amount of stress I'm feeling. In an instant, his entire body went cold, all the way to the tips of his fingers. He sat in a daze for a long moment, then frantically, gracelessly crawled out of the coffin. He saw a black tablet on the ground, along with a bowl of wontons and several other plates of side dishes, all his favorites. He stared at the dishes, then at the coffin. No, the nightmare continued. He'd fallen even deeper, it seemed. Or perhaps he'd finally woken up. Had everything the shadows said been true? Had he really taken the poison and laid down at the foot of the heaven-piercing tower to dream a long, long dream? Had everything in the dream been only... Moran didn't dare follow that line of thought to its end. He clambered to his feet, dashing towards the southern peak. This didn't match his memories of the time before his death. He distinctly recalled sending everyone away that last year. But as he ran, a retinue of attendants appeared, headed by old Liu. The same old Liu who had served him for so many years. The old man held a box, and on his wrinkled face was a beaming smile. "Your Majesty, the resurrection pool has been found. We've got it right here." Moran froze. Sorry, I know I'm stopping too much, and I actually was wanting not to, because I wanted to get through a lot of pages in this read along, but I'm feeling very overwhelmed and stressed. Moran froze. The attendants all went to their knees, offering their congratulations. Old Liu too was kneeling, offering up the brocade box in trembling, wizened hands. "It's the resurrection pole," he said hoarsely, "for which your Majesty has been searching so long. The gods are gracious. Here it is." "This isn't," Moran said numbly. Didn't I chase you all off the mountain?" The attendants blanched and cowed. "Your Majesty," old Liu anxiously answered, "why would you send us away? Has your humble servant not served you well? Your humble servant—" "What about the 10 great sects?" Old Liu was baffled. 10 great sects? He raised his head, confused. "Your Majesty, is something the matter?" Never be able to explain it. Instead, he dragged old Liu to the base of the heaven-piercing tower to show him. As they emerged from the woods, he gestured at the grave in front of the tower. "See for yourself. I was just sleeping in that." His coffin and tombstone were nowhere to be seen. There was just the solitary graves of the Empress and Consort, their tombstones inscribed with his own childish, dogged scrawl. Moran stared, flummoxed. "Your Majesty," old Liu asked once more, worry plain on his face. "What's wrong?" Moran stared at those graves in a daze, his mind all a jumble. Whoever's taking advantage of him in this way, I hate them. Oh. In one moment, he could see that this was some kind of phantasm, but in the next it felt real. He couldn't discern reality from illusion, couldn't tell where he was, when he was. "Your Majesty must be very troubled indeed," old Liu sighed. "Did you have a bad dream?" "It wasn't a dream," Moran mumbled. He shook his head and continued, face pale. "No. It has to be the dream," he muttered, incoherent, then snapped around and fixed his stare on old Liu. "Where's the resurrection pole?" "Moran, don't get pulled into this." Old Liu preferred the box. Instead of taking the box from his hands, Moran opened it. Within lay a single pearlescent pool, gleaming with gentle jade-like luster. Swallowing hard, he plucked it out with trembling fingers, then set out for the Red Lotus Pavilion. He was stopped in his tracks by old Liu. Moran turned back, his nerves so taut they were close to snapping. "What is it?" "Your Majesty," old Liu began. His face, which had its habitual affableness just moments ago, had grown dark, and something sinister glinted treacherously in his eyes. "Aren't you going in the wrong direction?" I have a thought, but I don't want to voice it. Your Majesty, you should be heading towards the resurrection platform, old Liu said, slow and clear. The rest of the attendants surrounded Moran, pressing in. "The one your Majesty has always yearned for, always wished to bring back to life. Is it not your Shishong, Shimingjing?" See, this is what I was thinking. Is this some kind of test by another version of Shimingjing? But then, what catches me about my theory of Shimingjing being the mastermind behind all of this is he was not present for Moran's descent into Taishan Jinness. So how would he know enough to be the advisor behind the scenes, you know? And obviously Shimingjing has been acting very strange, but that could also be explained if he, like Chuaning, has been having dreams of their past life because his soul has imprinted itself onto Moran's, which is another one of the theories that I have. There's too many theories going on. I feel like I need to keep a list. But then, if it's not Shimingjing, who else would have the motive of driving Moran continuously back to Shimingjing, unless it's another version of himself who has now become jealous of the younger Moran and the fact that Moran has a connection with Chuaning. But that just seems ridiculous. Then again, it's ErHa, so I'm not sure. Now that the resurrection pole is in your Majesty's hands, why is it that your Majesty does not make haste to the resurrection platform, but instead look towards the Red Lotus Pavilion? Old Liu continued, voice a whisper. Your Majesty slaughtered hundreds and thousands till the rivers ran red with blood, visited chaos and disaster upon the land as far as the eye could see, all in an effort to secure the means of rebirth. After having done all that, will your Majesty turn his back on everything he worked for and feed this pole to another person entirely? I mean, he gets to decide, considering all the damage he's already done, but sure. Moran, heart in turmoil, gripped the pole tightly and squeezed out. You don't understand. Your Majesty must go to the resurrection platform, not to the Red Lotus Pavilion. Maybe your exit is at the Red Lotus Pavilion if they want to keep you away from it so badly. The eyes of the attendants shone with a terrible light as they crowded in even closer, their ghastly faces encircling Moran as they repeated, Your Majesty must go to the resurrection pavilion, not the Red Lotus Pavilion. Resurrection platform, not the Red Lotus Pavilion. Get out of my way. Moran clenched his fingers around the resurrection pole, face pale. Guys, I don't want to be funny, but I suddenly feel really nauseous. So I don't know how long I'm going to be able to continue reading. I'm not sure why I'm suddenly feeling this way, but I'm going to try and press through it for a bit to see how it goes, but if I suddenly need to leave, that's why. Your Majesty must go to the resurrection pavilion. Move! He drew Bugui, its hilt ice cold in his hand, and the attendant shrank back. The pupils of their eyes narrowed into snake-like slits, and twisted smiles appeared on their faces, one by one. You'll regret this. Did you think you could change anything? You've broken your promise. Hypocrite. How can someone so false and fickle be worthy of that pull? Take it back, Seize it from him. Keeping a firm hold on the pole, Moran tore a bloody path through them, sprinting towards the southern tip of Shizun Peak. Whether this was a dream or reality, Chuaning would be there. He didn't care if he was alive or dead, he just needed to be there by Chuaning's side. Only then could his heart be at peace. Moran ran through the barrier of the Red Lotus Pavilion. It admitted him, but held Orglio and the rest at bay. He shot one last glance behind him, then closed the jade bamboo door, shutting out the sight of those faces. This was the Red Lotus Pavilion. The only ones allowed in here were himself and Shizun. His eyes widened with shock at the scene before him. Chuaning, standing at a table beneath a high-tongue tree. His hair was bound up in a high ponytail, and he wore metal gloves, his expression one of utmost focus as he examined the nearly complete piece of Holy Night Guardian in his hands. As the wind picked up, pale petals shook loose from the blossoms to flutter snow-like across the table and the steps of the courtyard. The rims of Moran's eyes reddened, and he choked out, "Shizun." Chuaning raised his head at the sound of Moran's voice. He was holding a file in his mouth, clearly very busy. Caught by surprise at Moran's sudden appearance, he put the file away and straightened, nodding at him. "What are you doing here?" Okay. I wanted to get through that because I just feel like we needed to end it on a lighter cliffhanger. But unfortunately I do think I need to end it here because I don't know why I'm suddenly feeling this way, but I don't think I can keep going. So I hope you guys still enjoyed it. I'm really sorry to cut it short. I won't be able to even make it to the 2-hour mark, which sucks. I'm trying to think, maybe I can try and do a short one to just catch up on Sunday, depending on how I'm feeling. But I will keep you guys posted in the community tab. So again, sorry about that, but I hope you guys will have a good rest of your day, and I will see you guys again next time. 再见。